Graffiti is really synonymous with New York City. The movement began in the late 70s, and despite unsanctioned origins, graffiti and its artists have since been rightfully embraced as the art form and true artists that they are.
And now it's the subject of a new exhibit and upcoming conference at the Museum of the City of New York. Joining us now on the couch is Sean Corcoran from the museum and Dr. Edward Burzin. He's a professor and former graffiti artist. First and foremost, thank you both for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So, Sean, what is Above Ground? Tell me about it, how it came about.
Yeah, Above Ground is a collection of work, of graffiti-based artwork that is part of our permanent collection at the Museum of the City of New York. We have a collection of more than 300 works on canvases and works on paper. And what we wanted to do was trace the story of young graffiti artists who came from the streets and their kind of journey to working in a more legitimate form in galleries and museums.
And Edward, you started as a graffiti artist. It's been part of your life. Tell us a little bit how that came about. How did you sort of learn that about yourself, that this was something you were not just interested in, but very talented at?
Well, I'm from Brooklyn, and graffiti was big in Brooklyn in the 90s. I loved graffiti. I did a lot of graffiti when I was younger. It was an outlaw kind of art thing happening. But what really changed for me was when I got my PhD. I studied in Germany, and I was able to write a dissertation on the growth of graffiti from child's play to an original art in the 1970s in New York City, and that's where the TAG conference comes from.
Sean, how does graffiti or street art sort of capture the essence of what New York City is?
Well, I think it embraces, it embodies the creativity and the ambition of New York. In this case, as Ed said, it's really a youth culture, but it also is a youth culture that was born here in New York and Philadelphia, but then exploded and became a culture, a worldwide culture. And New York is definitely an exporter of culture.
We don't talk about Philadelphia if we don't have to. We were talking in the commercial break about the pioneers, and some of which were never really embraced as much as the artists of modern day, considering the fact that we collectively as a society have embraced the art that is graffiti. So the history and intention behind the TAG conference is a large part of what you're talking about is in this book that you guys have here on this table that embraces sort of the people who started this movement.
That's right. From Stay High 149 to Phase 2 to Dez. These are graffiti writers who began this movement and really didn't get their flowers, let's say, that they should have. Didn't get what we feel they deserved. The pioneers never do. And so this conference is really trying to remember them and their what they brought to the art form.
Which is so important. So what can people expect if they attend?
Well, we're going to have a couple of academic speakers. We have Joe Austin, we have Raphael Schachter, Carlos Mayer, but then we also have non-academics who are going to remember the people, as I said, the Phase 2s and Zexers and Kez 5s of the world who really should be held up high and thought about.
When you first started, you mentioned Brooklyn roots. It was sort of this thing that you would do that you knew was not sanctioned. It wasn't, right. and that's a word that sort of graffiti has become, city contracts. And the city has, I think, smartly said, we have all this open space, why don't we have some artists come and put some graffiti on them? That probably may have seemed so impossible when you first started. How did it change in your mind over the years?
You know, Sean just said that this was a art created by young people, but I also bring the idea that adults were in the room at the same time, and now the adults of today were the kids of before. I'm an adult now. I can make spaces for us to talk about this in a more academic way or a more sanctioned way. Sean, who is wonderful at the Museum of the City of New York, he helps us bring this to an institution. So, you know, I guess the argument is between the institution and non-institutionality of it all. And, you know, it's a fine line, but I love that Sean allows us in his space. But we will continue writing in the streets.
Very cool. Well, thank you both so much for being here this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Once again, the exhibit opens this coming Friday, June 13th.
And tickets are still available on the museum's website, so get your tickets. We'll be right back.